how they can separate to begin with. Just
Okay. So welcome everyone to the April 2024 Design Review Committee meeting. I'm going to call the roll to confirm that our DRC members are present. Mari Davis.
here.
Robert Dudka is excused. Alex Foster is on her way, I believe, and Andrew Wenchel.
Here.
The DRC meetings are held in person and streamed simultaneously to allow commissioners, applicants, and the public to attend online. For members of the board and applicants joining us this evening. If board members or applicants lose internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us via the dial-in phone option. Applicants, please keep your devices muted and your video turned off until your item is under review. When called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on your meeting command bar. The command bar will appear if you move your cursor down toward the bottom of your screen. You do not have the ability to unmute you. If you are dialing in by phone, press *6 to unmute. The meeting chat is active for participants who need technical assistance and should not be used for questions. The public may observe the meetings, but participation in the discussion is limited to applicants and members of the HALRB during this meeting. Public comment is welcome at the HALRB meeting. Information about signing up as a speaker or submitting a public comment for that meeting is available on the HALRB website. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. So with that, Chuck, if you'd like to join us at the table, you're welcome to now because your item is first. Okay. So, and Chuck, please feel free to jump in. But this project here is for the installation of the roof patch at 1758 Road Street in Colonial Village, which is one of our garden apartment complexes. That's a local historic district. Scroll down because we have some photos of things. So it would be like on the roof and not visible from the public right of way, correct? Yeah. Okay. And these are some of the drawings for it. It would be replacing an existing skylight, and they have installed these patches. In other locations in Colonial Village, it's just that those locations are located outside of the LHD boundaries, so they haven't been used by the HALRB before. But it is something that is used elsewhere in the garden complex. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's fine. Unless there's
Okay.
questions, I think a couple pictures might.
Yep.
See them. So that's a typical skylight existing. This would be, that's the subject building from the street at North Roads looking up. So you can tell the elevation's higher. As you get into a tree, you're not going to see it. There's a location, it's outside the LHD, and you can see not so well, but hatches on all the buildings are about 20 foot back, so you don't see it there. One, this is what the new hatch looked like that had been installed. And the main reason we're doing this, and I can't believe it had been done before, is the accessibility for the maintenance, which has to be done routinely every couple of weeks, going off leaves, whatever. And guys can now go with a ladder inside a building rather than carrying a 30 or 40 foot ladder going up on the outside of the building to access the hall. And in this particular location, they'll be able to access 17 of the addresses in this one location. Very useful and improves safety for things.
What is the space below?
This is the second floor, so they're in the garden, and the space below is just the hallway access to the other residences.
Okay, so it's not a unit.
Right, correct. Yeah, and then the proposed one would also not be in a unit.
Otherwise, Chuck, he has a ladder for every building, right, pretty much.
Well, you have to take the same ladder up and down and go from, one to another in some instances. I've had two maintenance guys not fall off a roof, but
Just
they've fallen off a 6-foot ladder before. Guy was out. Anyway, so we're just trying to do things that would help improve the situation. That's another one you can see at a distance. It's GAF TPO membrane is reflective pretty much, so you can't even see it, but it's behind that little gable.
Size again in the opening or
32 or something like that. Whatever is required for code for human act. I was kind of hoping they'd be able to squeeze in through the existing little. But maybe this guys are a little bit too big.
Yeah, I think I wrote it was like 3 feet long and 2 feet and 6 inches wide is what is shown on that.
okay.
But then do you happen to know, like at its height, how
Well, when it's closed, it was funny because we were going to take that picture of it open and we realized, oh, if we close it, we can't get down. So I didn't measure it, but I think it's probably in.
okay, yeah.
I take no exception with it. I think it makes sense. I think it's pretty, you don't really see it anyway. It seems like it'll actually enhance the safety on site in general. I mean, it does eliminate, I guess, some natural light coming in, but it's not inside a unit. I assume the corridors are well lit anyway, so usually had to have that. But I take exception to the proposal. That's it.
Okay,
I don't have any.
okay. All right, then do you all feel comfortable with it going on the consent agenda at the HALRB meeting? Yeah, okay.
All right,
Wonderful.
great, thank you all. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to excuse myself. Enjoy the meeting.
Thanks for coming. We'll move on to the next item, which is you all. So if you want to join us at the table, please come up. Actually, we want to do quick introductions because they not all made it to people last month. So
Guys, good.
we're Brian and Lisa Coe, the homeowners. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
And John McKenna and Alex Centeno from MC3 Design were the architects of the project. You as well?
Good one again.
Yes.
Okay, so I oh. So last month, this project, just as a quick refresher, this project came forward for preliminary review with you all and shared some of the design that they came up with. This project is in Maywood and it would be a side and rear addition to a main house. And actually, let me scroll down so you can see where it's sited. So it's on the edge of the local historic district boundaries. There's a lot of like parkland and everything else around here. So that kind of gives you a sense of its context. But their proposal includes the partial demolition of the back and then incorporating the existing garage into the design. I will go back to these in a second. I just want to freestanding garage. Yes, yeah, the detached, yeah. Okay, so This is what is currently proposed. So the project would also include the removal of this tree back here in order to make the addition possible. We're having our urban forester look at it. She hasn't been able to get out there yet, but she will soon to provide her report on the tree. Oops, sorry. But just a brief overview of kind of what was discussed at the last meeting, and then we'll get into what our thoughts are on this iteration of the design. But some of the feedback that the DRC gave was to create more of a separation of space kind of between the addition and the original house. So the roof line used to all be one level, and instead they've created this like hyphenated space in between to help break it up and make it seem more secondary to the original house. There's also been some changes with the incorporation of the gable roof from the garage, correct? Okay.
Yep.
And then are there any other changes you kind of want to highlight that you made to the design per the DRC comments?
Those are the primary for the massing. So the critical element was dropping that roof, and then the roof line on the garage is now outside of the proposed scope. So it's a 1 foot setback in both instances in order to denote that separation.
About the garage door.
Oh, the garage, I'm sorry, that's included as well, yes. Yep,
So those are,
correct, yes. So we put in here as a wood door appearance. We haven't yet sourced a proper door. So we are able to get the wood door aesthetic as an overhead, but we've not yet sourced anything that would be an actual side operable.
just which subject. Garage. This types out the ceiling. The garage. Have a boat, a canoe. I wanna see.
Hold on a
The
second.
advantage of original garage doors, and I know this was not original garage, but if you had outswinging garage doors, probably be more compatible with the house itself. Could driving with your canoe or small boat, hoisted. It has a real advantage.
Thank you, Anthony.
So,
So let's talk about the garage really quickly because there is some new information we have been able to uncover about it since we were able to share the materials with you all. So the garage was listed as contributing in the National Register of Historic Places nomination for Maywood. And it was attributed, the date was 1936 is when the estimated construction date was. And that's because it appears on a Sanborn fire insurance map for 1936. And so the surveyors at the time thought that it was the same garage. We have since found a house card, which outlines all the permits that happened before we went digital with the permitting system. And it noted that the garage was, or that a garage was built with a basement in 1983. So Lauren and I went out today and met with Lisa and Alex to look at the garage. And based on what we're seeing physically, we would concur that it is not a 1936 garage, that it is not as historic as that. We didn't find anything that said, built in 1983 while we were out there. But I think that given the evidence that we have found in the archival record, and then I know that there's been some discussion with neighbors to the property that also identify that they think the garage was built at a later date. I think that that's enough evidence to indicate that the garage that's there now is not actually historic and is probably would no longer be considered contributing to the district. So food for thought on the incorporation of the garage into the design. Yeah. But I think with that, I'd love to hear what the DRC thinks about this design iteration. Do you feel that the scale and massing is appropriate? Staff has different thoughts about certain things, and so we're happy to share those. But I think to get us started, we'd like to hear DRC.
I'd like to ask a question first. Is it a public park? That's good.
Yes.
And the other question that comes, I actually thought we'd have a little bit more difference in height. Height, if you will, height. And I think it suggested inviting here would reduce the height of the hyphen bridge going to instead of Western Shingles. That's, I think that would better emphasize it.
Yeah. That makes, yeah. Yeah, I have a question, more of a process question, and I mean, I think that it may or may not play it later on, but out of curiosity, was the idea of doing the addition on the rear of the house solely explored fully? I mean, it's in terms of like, setbacks or like sort of property line explored, or was this sort of wraparound sort of strategy, sort of like the first blush, what to do?
No, it was absolutely explored. Michael, are you able to go to the plat for this?
Yeah.
So the left property line actually angles in on the orientation of the house. So if we're to go directly off the rear primary structure, we've actually not even gone entirely off the rear due to the fact that the left corner there, if we go back even as far as that original kitchen bump out is, we'd be in our side yard setback. So we'd have to scoot over to the side, and then you do see the existing 1 foot retaining wall there. We have a very steep drop off on the rear there. So as soon as we start pushing further back, we're going towards almost deep enough, and depending how large of a footprint we'd get to, we would need a sub basement. We'd be a very deep, large build back there. Yes, we go about just 5 feet beyond on the right side. Beyond that wall. Yep. And the big portion of that square footage that we're able to reduce the footprint of the addition is because we have the space above the existing garage. So taking that square footage and putting it onto the footprint or rear addition would push us back pretty significantly. And then we would get into a very weird geometry with the side yard setback.
Back to the elevation.
Yes.
And there are renderings too that may be helpful as well.
Hopefully a little slower this time.
Back to that,
This one?
yeah, just a little
Yeah.
more.
And so the public road does end here. The only visibility, and that's actually the intent of these renderings here, is the first rendering is pretty much the property line, closest neighbor vision, and you can virtually not see anything. You come towards our property, seeing more in line with the addition. You could just see the garage peeking out in both the existing rendering and the photo there. And then as you get straight on, there's nothing, the road actually truly dead ends there. There's a bit of a turnaround into the park, and that's it.
I think that the addition does a good job of making it clear what's existing, historic, and what's new in an interpretation, and it ties in. You called it a hyphen, I went here last time. That's a good way to separate them. It's perfect grammatically. And I was looking at the heights of it, and whether it's the height of the hyphen that creates a separation, or whether it's the addition that becomes diminutive because it's at a lower level, it just seems like a lot of eve lines. There's just a lot going on,
Sure.
which is fine. And maybe it's a stylistic thing, maybe it's a compatibility thing. I do think it makes sense that the hyphen is lowered. Play with the height of the addition mass. It is interesting to me because they're so close. This perspective, maybe it's different from the street level, but especially from the elevation, it looks like the addition and the original building are just so close, almost accidental, and it makes it a little bit confusing because the elevation of the windows are so close. They're almost aligned, but they're not quite proportionate to the addition or the existing. There's not a vocabulary that's consistent, which maybe that's intentional. I think it's a little distracting. But I think in terms of whether or not it's compatible, we can go into that, but it's clear what's original and what's not. I think that's successful.
Yeah, the gable at the top of the addition right now, I think had more context when we did have the continuous roof because it broke up a flat line.
Right.
And it pulled the gable from the original house as the inspiration, same ratios, same everything there. So we can look at going to either more of a single gable instead of having the dormer pop out or that ridge line coming through off the front. Since we did bring that gable, the original gable of the garage is now remaining on the front on the lower level.
I think that's fun how you did it. It's a nice little graphic line. It's historic. It feels playful, and echoing it on top isn't a bad idea. I think what's distracting me is the cross ridge line.
Okay.
But it's not, and maybe that was a response to our comments last time. But I would hate for our comments to dissuade you from doing something that felt proportional. Especially if you're able to create that articulation between new and old with the hyphen. If the hyphen is enough, then I don't think it's absolutely essential that the addition has to be a different
Sure.
proportion.
Okay.
Whatever feels right design wise, I think that's a priority, especially because we've addressed the historic. Maybe.
I still think even lower the hyphen more the trick, which is basically front, drop the ceiling height, second floor, 7 foot, 7'6". I think that Marines. I know we're not supposed to say anything about color, but one of the other things you could do is paint ritual trigger construction one color and change hue, color, addition, hyphen, the emphasis. You could, you could even go with the dark blue for the house and light blue. Mission reverse. I think that would help play it. This just
I think the one thing I would say maybe is that the gable, the front, the gable on the addition, I think that the head of the windows get a little bit close to sort of that bottom edge of the gable there, and that's little sort of the tension there is a little bit too much, I think maybe.
You're talking about here.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, maybe just maybe narrow up the one as a scotch or what it would be, but that's just a design comment.
Sure.
Nothing to, up a train over, yeah.
So I think from staff's perspective, we felt that the side addition, even with the lower bridge, was still just a little bit too big in its massing in comparison to the historic house, and that the guidelines really do reiterate that the massing of an addition needs to read secondary to the original house. And so we had thought that it could be lowered even more and become more of a 1.5 story addition. Having said that, and now understanding the history of the garage a little bit, we wanted to just toss an idea out there and kind of see where it landed. How would the DRC feel? And maybe it's a better question for you, John and Alex, about if that garage, given that it's not historic, didn't need to be included anymore in the design, what kind of wiggle room would that give you in terms of your design?
In terms of totally removing the garage. as a
Yeah,
design element.
like would it allow for more flexibility with the space you're given in that area, and then therefore allowing for the side addition to become a little more like stepped back secondary to the primary? It's just a thought we wanted to
Yeah.
talk about there.
Sure.
I know kind of like it is different than what you've presented.
Yeah, there are a number of contributing factors there. I think programmatically, it could be a challenge. I know you do intend to use it as a garage, is that correct?
Yes,
If
we do.
possible.
We would like
So-
to have a garage, but
With that aside, assuming that the garage were removed, the dissociation of the elevations is a little challenging. We'd be better off if we were to reconstruct here, tying the garage elevation to the basement, proposed basement, than to the proposed first floor. And as we reach our proposed second floor, we're back to that same height. So I think even removing the scope, we wouldn't read as a 1.5. We'd be close to a 2-story addition regardless.
if we still wanted to make it feel diminutive, I wonder if just that front gable, if that didn't, on the upper level, it didn't read like a roof, or it read like a roof, but not a gable. When you took off that cross piece, so it almost comes in an L. It would be its own addition. It wouldn't be competing with the primary structure. And it wouldn't technically be lower, but I think it would look a little bit lower. And you wouldn't sacrifice, you'd sacrifice a little bit of headroom,
Potentially.
but only on the corners. And
Yeah.
It might be a way to split the difference.
And it's significantly set back from the primary structure, so it would definitely read less from the street in perspective. The elevations, I think, are a little hard architecturally, because you will never see this. So from perspective, it will always read a bit further back. But yeah, if we remove that gable, I think it may be a little bit on our drawing style here as well. We hid the historic, and it's really making it pronounced. So I think that does also impact.
Yeah, you catch that a little bit better.
Yeah, and at the end of the set, I don't know if that's more. No, I think those early ones are.
I think you might, I think you might, I think that gable, the gable's not there, it's a little quieter, I don't know, I think it could be maybe even the same height, but it's just gonna read a little bit less, like it's less developed, I mean, not like in a bad way, but just like less loud, I don't know. That's kind of my take on it. I think, like even at the same height, I think we just read a little bit quieter, I don't know.
Front gable or?
Well, I think the front gable, I
Cross line, okay,
think the front
so
gable.
taking that out, taking out the one that's
No.
perpendicular to it, so it almost reads like an L.
I see what you mean, I see what you mean,
But
yeah.
either way, I think taking
Yeah.
one out,
Yeah.
and don't sacrifice. I like keeping the front gable because it feels like welcoming, it's almost like an homage to the existing structure.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of fun and it looks good. But, and because of the view lines, it's set back. I mean, you can see from here.
Yeah, so, yeah.
But either one, I think taking one of them out, there's just a lot going.
Yeah. I agree, taking one out will definitely make it less,
Clean.
yeah, right.
Change the back. There we go.
Yeah.
Just a second.
Whichever one.
No, the last, they just did exactly what I was looking for. Oh, it works. First, the idea, 2 different shades.
Mhm.
Oh, break that mask.
Yeah, this is more the graphic depiction of it with the overlay trying to make it pronounced. But yeah, I understand that as a stylistic choice as well to really emphasize.
Well, I think sorry.
Oh.
Did you want to-
One minor point, it would be possible to get the head height of that, of the door, I guess it goes to addition to be the same as that window there, was there a reason why they're offset or?
No, that's actually unintentional. Those should, yeah, we would definitely want to match our head heights. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And the ratios, the proportions of the windows are based off the existing home. So, and we had just received a comment. We're looking at removing probably the window tight to the door and putting some glazing into the door to the mudroom itself, which would help make that a little lighter as well.
Thought that it would also help that door feel more secondary to like the main house's entrance. And so if it had some glazing in it, and then it would feel less crowded in this space. So, yeah. And then just while we're speaking about windows, I did want to take the DRC's temperature about the windows on the side and rear elevations. So staff feel that, you know, these are a little bit proportionally off from the original windows. We had also made the suggestion that it might be good to have a 1/1 window type as opposed to a 6/1, but that was just staff's thought and suggestion. But I think whatever thoughts the DRC has about windows on the side elevation and also on the rear elevation too would be welcome.
It looks
You
like
didn't see the, you didn't see these the last time. I think. Right, I think that's it.
This one was part of the application the last time, but okay, so you agree that the windows are a little bit too large?
This is on the side.
Okay,
It looks like the windows are really close to the bottom of the roof.
you're talking about like here and
Especially
here.
on that other elevation.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Almost potentially like impossibly close.
Played
But
with our roof lines, yeah.
but might want to look at that. In terms of personal, it is on the side and the back. I guess gives people, it does feel a little bit large. It depends what you're doing with it. What do you think, Mark?
I would agree. I think that they're a little large. I mean, I think the proportion. Yeah. I mean, and again, it is on the side, but I think it helps sort of tie the entire look of the house together, which is all proportional. Even the side, I mean, it's a little bit less historical support on the side. Just for integrity of the house in general. I think it's good.
But- Interesting. I think the windows on the side elevation too large and need to kind of come into somewhat the size of the contributing structure. On the back, I don't think there's any real can fit to the back elevation. I don't mind that as much because there's really two. And so I think you could maybe make them smaller, but I don't think it's as much of an issue as so much of a comparison.
And I think that could be explored like over here too, because this is another side elevation.
On both sides.
Yeah, on both side elevations, not just one.
One thing that strikes me, and maybe it's less about the count, just kind of the alignment of them. They're a little bit cattywampus all over. One thing I appreciate about the contributing structure is just kind of the rhythm and regularity and alignment. It's very simple. It is a lot of windows, which I'm not opposed to. It's just that even the proportions of the windows don't, like, of the independent, that 6 over there in that corner on the front addition part, they don't seem aligned at all, which is just kind of confusing. It doesn't read clearly. Maybe that's less about proportions, just kind of how they're placed. It doesn't seem contextual compared to some of the other buildings we've seen. That's important. I'm not sure if that's criteria for like.
Well, I think that like, you know, I think the HALRB will look at every project kind of in its own right, but I think you make a valid point about the rhythm of those. I think staff had made the suggestion that maybe this pair of windows goes away so that it feels a little bit more like there's a better rhythm to it a little bit. I know that that would mean the loss of windows, and I know the whole point of that was to really have the open views of the park. But I think for it to read visually maybe a little less cluttered in that particular area, that was staff's suggestion.
Yeah.
But
Sure. From a design perspective, we went a little too hard on the historic side. We went exactly on the ratio. So everything is a scale of the existing windows. So with a little more flexibility of identifying the addition as the addition, if we were to put a picture window in here, we get rid of a lot of complicated, unnecessary windows here. So if we can open something, because that's a stairwell that has the multiple pieces, we've got a couple.
Yeah.
So if we can put a larger picture window or the 1/1s, that opens up a lot of different possibilities. And from a design aesthetic, I think it would totally revamp this. And it's a very interesting, this is the drive. You open the front door and you can see straight through and have all of this glass. So if we can create that with a bit more of an open window, it's going to be a significantly better design, more continuous through the whole house.
I think I wouldn't be opposed to picture window on that backside person. I think if we sort of made the composition read a little bit better, I think I'd be about
Excellent.
on the backside.
Yeah.
I think 1/1 even on the side.
Side. Okay.
So one over ones, smaller windows on the side. And we're thinking 1/1 on the back, allowing a picture window. But the windows here don't need to be reduced in size on the rear.
I think it's more like, for me, it's more like the composition. I mean, I think
Okay.
that, I think I made a comment last time about it being too glassy. And I think that's maybe like kind of an opinion I had, but I think honestly, I think it's a nice view and it's on the rear. I think it's more of my opinion than anything else. I think for me, it's more the sort of the composition. I think that at this point, I think the amount of glazing percentage, I think it's maybe as it is, but more than how they're composed on the rear side.
Yeah, I think we can definitely make that work.
One of the suggestions, probably picture windows. Might take a picture window in the center, make it two upper windows, whether those are basement, not swinging, or somehow different, smaller.
Sure.
So you've got a kind of compatible design, not just picture window. So just
You said you took the proportions of the existing window and just scaled it up. What do you mean by that?
So if we go, it's easier to see on the front elevation. But basically we had the dormer window size, the front window elevation size, and then there's some smaller ones on the side elevation that are the generators for everything. So if we scaled up or down, we went towards available window sizes as tight as we can get to the historic size.
So I think, see, we're starting to go a little over.
Yeah.
So one of the things I just want to bring up is if the garage, now having the garage and using its kind of existing design into this, I think actually does work in your favor in one way because the HLRB does not tend to approve two double wide garages. They kind of don't like that. So the fact that you already have this existing means you can play with that a bit, but to kind of keep that use. But at the same time, if the garage is taken away as a design element, then it kind of lets you work, have a different kind of idea to the design. That might be something you want to consider. So that the HLRB, with what we found, might be comfortable with the idea of this garage going away and starting a little bit more from scratch on the lot. But if you do still want a garage, trying to reintroduce a whole new double wide garage may not be.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm thinking that maybe the HLRB will.
That's what we were trying.
Yeah.
Last time. I don't know whether you want to say off. I'm not sure for,
Well, I think that that's, you know, you all, if you feel, well, let me ask this. Do you feel comfortable with the direction you've been given this evening?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the roof lines are probably the hardest part to get it done properly. There's a couple different directions we can go,
Okay.
but I think I would like to move forward with the window changes. I have no issue. I think it would be an improvement.
Okay.
The roof lines, maybe we get a little more direction tonight so we can do that. I think I had a conflict of which roof.
Good, that happens.
Know what feels right, and I think,
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest takeaway though is I think that, like Alex, I think either one, either the Gable or the cross Gable, like if one of them goes away, I think it'll help.
Yeah.
Diminutize the size of it, so. Do what feels right design wise.
we're gonna say, here to,
Or should we have them come back with the design?
Probably recommend coming back to us. I mean, I don't, yeah, that's probably my, but I mean, I guess, as an applicant too, I mean, do you think that you can sort of incorporate the spirit of tonight's conversation, and everything into, I guess, in 2 weeks to come back before us?
Absolutely.
Not even 2 weeks. It's
Yeah,
next week.
I would
It's next
need-
Tuesday.
Yeah, I
Oh,
would need
next
any,
Tuesday, right.
yeah. I would just need any changes by next
Yeah.
Tuesday in order to get
Yeah.
it to the HALRB to review a week in advance.
Sure.
Okay,
Yep.
which this month's meeting is on the 17th. So you're comfortable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're happy to be, I mean, our correspondence has been fantastic, so I think we'd be very quick for a turnaround, and if there's any changes, then, we're happy to make them and proceed from there.
That makes sense to you,
So
Alex?
do you all- That sounds good. So just to summarize, so I understand, say, keeping the addition diminutive, simplifying the roof a little bit, just aligning the windows.
Yeah, and similarly, and it makes more sense as well to, we have the garage and come back in a month. It's also, I mean, I'm not saying that's also an option, not to be the only.
problems.
Yeah,
Problem.
yeah, I think probably so, yeah. So
Say there's many
an option,
options that you can go with.
it'd be a trade-off. I mean, you lose your upper garage, but you might get more play in terms of floor plan. I mean, the trade-off there. I mean, but I agree. If you want a garage up, I mean, I'd probably just keep that base there. You have that. It's up to the client, obviously.
Well, I think based off of that, you all are comfortable with it going to the HALRB. If you all have conversations after this that indicate you want to explore things further, then I would recommend you come back to the DRC one more time and go full HALRB in May. But if you're gonna stick with this and kind of make some of those final tweaks, then I'll follow up with you with an email either way. But I'm assuming we would like to put this on the discussion agenda. Yes. Okay. So basically that just means that I do a presentation about your application to the board, and they discuss it as a whole. So it's not on the consent agenda, which is just voted at the beginning of the meeting and block. So there's full robust discussion about your project.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So, go to. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, I believe I just.
Have a good
Okay,
night.
thank you so much. Okay, I do see Alex is here. Thank you for your patience. Really appreciate it. I know we went over time.
Oh, it's no problem. I think Jamie is going to go ahead and kind of tell you about the project. It's essentially we're requesting the accessory structure with a smaller setback.
So
Just one note that I would like to make, this is preliminary, so that this isn't a formal COA application quite yet. They just want your initial thoughts and feedback, especially on the setback, so please go ahead.
Sure. So I'm Jamie Jackson. I live in the Maywood Historic District in a home built in 1910 with my husband and 2 boys. My husband's on the line there, Michael. And we're seeking to build a studio, essentially, or a structure in the back rear of our lot. It's sort of the dark black corner where nothing grows. There's no sunlight, and I can't really figure out a way to do anything else with it. Studio would be, I believe, 1.5 stories. We have support from about, I think, 6 or 7 neighbors have provided me signatures of support in case that's of interest. One other thing of note, the prior owners of our home, so we've lived there for about 3 or 4 years. The prior owners of our home had submitted and got approved by the HALRB for our shed structure as well in the exact same spot. Theirs was a bit smaller, so we're seeking a structure a little bit bigger with a little bit more of a setback. Questions? And also, I found this process fascinating listening to everybody.
So I'll scroll through these so you all can see them, but obviously because it's preliminary, we don't have like everything, all the information that we would need, but this is what it would look like. And the request would be for the HALRB to use their setback modification power, which essentially would allow this to get constructed and not necessarily be in like compliance with the zoning setbacks that are set for lots of this size. So basically that was developed as part of the zoning ordinance to allow the HALRB to, like, let's say there's a row of houses, there's 4 of them. 3 have front porches, the 4th one doesn't, but they want to build a front porch, but it would get into like the setback zone that zoning requires. The HALRB has the power to say we actually think that they should be allowed because it helps maintain the streetscape, or it helps maintain the historic character of the neighborhood. And so that's how it's been used in the past. I think 2 of the most recent examples, the HALRB used it for a rear addition because there was some of a need for setback modification on the side, so that was included in the motion to use that. And then there's been another instance, there's been a couple instances, but the 2 that I looked up for tonight, there was I think it was a garage. Yeah, I think it was a garage, but the HALRB chose not to use the setback. They decided to defer it to the county. So it's kind of, up to you all how you want to use the setback modification, but it sounds like previously there had been a project on the lot, not when you owned it, but prior to that, the homeowners had something approved to be constructed in this area.
Yeah, and they had a setback approved to 3 feet from the rear fence line, I believe, and we're seeking 2.
I'll look into it because we should have record of that, but that's good context.
What is the?
Michael, I can send you a copy of the COA for that one. I have it. Jamie's already provided it to us, so.
Okay, that would be perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure, I'll send that over.
Yeah, that would be great. So I'm not sure about the neighbors, but so basically, and Alex, please correct me if I get the numbers wrong, but the proposal is to have a 2.2 foot setback at the rear, although it would measure about 1.2 feet from the eave line. And then it would be 3.2 feet on the left-hand side. And Alex, do you know what zoning, I think I found it, but I want to make sure that I'm correct, that for detached accessory structures that are on a corner lot, it would be basically zoning allows for something that's 10 feet back from the line, I think. Is that correct, Alex? Do you know?
I don't, well, I mean, this is, well, this is next to, I mean, there is something backing to them.
It's a condo building behind us.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that is not, and that building next to them is not, that's not in the historic district, is that right?
Correct.
The one on the back side isn't.
The run on the back.
Yeah,
And so that back corner, I mean, it's backing to somebody else, so it's not a corner. It's only the front setback that is affected by a corner lot
oh, okay.
on both sides. But I thought it was, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact, if it was 3 feet or 5 feet for the accessory structure on the, in the zoning
Okay.
right now. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
No, it's.
I don't want to tell you
okay.
the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Andy, did you have something?
Yes, once we've got both all the adjoining properties, property let's to what structures alone, how close they are to the property, I don't see how we can consider this.
Okay.
You know, I really, there's required separations anyway. It's required in other words. And if each of them is, it got approval to modify what setback.
It's just an example, so it's not just applicable to the front. Yeah,
If it isn't just applicable, I don't think we should consider this until we get information.
well, I think the only counter I would have to that is that that's really, that to me is more up to zoning to make that determination as to whether or not it would be appropriate with the surrounding structures, because it's not really, you all are not the zoning board, and so that's, I don't know how having some of that information about the buildings on the other side would really help with making the decision about this particular structure.
I think it would be overall essentially zoning. That's why I'm saying, whilst we see that company, you know, we're all comfortable with that. It also limits what you can have on the side and rear elevations close to the property line in terms of windows and doors. So, I mean, I just think I'm not opposed to the idea of vision. It's just that let's discuss this until we have this information. Because I don't want to have it said, because that's what essentially.
But the HLB has that authority to do
In
it.
the zoning ordinance.
It's just the issue, the HLB approves it and then the zoning commission decides that it's not appropriate. It just might mean that we would be sending the applicant down a road where you might not get.
Right, because
But
I think the BZA has.
So this is a question that I've been in contact with zoning to ask the next step in the process, because I think that from my understanding right now is that the HALRB actually, because of the zoning ordinance, it doesn't have to go to the BCA.
Okay. So that's been.
So I want to confirm that before I guarantee that. And so, go ahead, Alex.
If we can or
Use the setback modification power.
we have the case where it's historically justified.
I think that is how it has been used in the past, but I would need to do more digging for other examples with garages and studio, like secondary structures. Because it has been applied to secondary structures, but I think it's more to help with like cadence and landscape and that sort of thing.
So if that's the case, if we're going to evaluate it for any of those, I think we need more information. about What's going on in the surroundings, whether it's, there is a historical precedent, the vicinity, maybe a few more photos so we can understand. My only concern, and maybe it's not a zoning issue, it's if we don't have information about it being historic, do we set this as a precedent? And if the neighbors want to do the same thing in mirror image, are they 4 feet away from one another? That doesn't, are we creating a historic precedent by doing this? And so that doesn't make a lot of sense to me if that's going to be overriding zoning, because to your point, this is a fire issue. And it's especially if this is now a residence.
Fire issue, it's also an issue of what you have on the elevations in terms of windows and doors. That's, which is also part of the fire. I don't think you can get that close to the property line.
Yeah,
In any
actually,
case, and I don't really think it's the amendment we usually have. I think this is
it's hard to make a judgment
Okay.
with this.
And can I ask with the structure that had been approved before by the previous owners, how large was that in comparison to what you're proposing now?
I believe theirs was about, sorry.
No, go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry. You probably know better than I do. I was trying to pull it up right now.
I brought a copy.
I'm wondering if that approval may have already had these types of conversations a little bit. I mean, they may not have tried to get, this kind of waiver to the setback, but
Right.
Do you have any records for having?
This is the first that we've heard of this project. And like I said, this is preliminary. So I haven't done a deep dive on this one, but now that I have the due date, I can definitely do a look at the minutes and everything else we have on record
Right.
for when this was discussed. It looks like the garden shed then was 390 square feet. So this is a little bit bigger, but you had said
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
It does appear that this is set off. I'm not seeing anything that says it's only 3 feet long. No, never mind, right there, it is 3 feet. Sure why.
I guess I would have kind of this is maybe just almost a question more about the process and everything else. I mean, in the past, we were looking at these things as being unoccupied, like, garden sheds or garages. And I mean, it is, maybe it's not different, but it does feel different if somebody can occupy it to be living in it. I mean, I know you said studio, but I mean, but the ADU sort of, I guess the process is for something to be lived in.
Okay, so I can tell you what I intend to use it for, is as an art studio.
Yeah, it's almost like a shed in that case. I mean, that's, I mean,
I call it a she shed.
yeah, right, yes, she said. Right, so, I mean, I think that, again, that's just, it's more of a philosophical question about, I mean, it just seems a little bit different now, at the storage building being next to the storage building, even if it creates like a 4-foot corridor, maybe it's not ideal.
if it's an accessory dwelling next to an accessory dwelling,
Right.
then the chances of having.
Yeah, it just feels different if it's a dwelling versus a true like house structure to me. I mean, it's maybe zoning wise, it's the same at this point, but just throwing it out there.
This is really hard to tell where the property line is from where, what this particular line is.
Yeah.
So I only wanted to, I was asking about the size difference because if the HLRB does not want to go into, the setback authority, then we would need to shrink the size of the structure
Or go to
the BZA. So, and that's why I wanted to look at the design, because I'm like, well, could this design still happen if it's
you know,
Right.
from a size board to a size two.
Well,
Right.
yeah. Well, because I think there are a couple of different points kind of going through my head right now. The main reason you want it in this location is because you want to utilize as much of the yard still as possible, right? Okay, so if you were to move it in, that would mean that it's no longer like a viable project for you. Like you wouldn't want to explore it if it were within the setback that it needs.
Yeah, the way our backyard is, I mean, it would be essentially.
Most good. Okay, so that's helpful context. Setting aside the like setback modification situation, based off what you're seeing here, do you all feel like how do you feel about its design? And Alex, it is 7:30. I know. Okay.
All
All right.
good. Is the house?
Oh, I don't have a photo of it on here, but
I mean, it's adorable. It's so cute. I love
Yeah.
it. I just, it's hard to,
It's a mini replica of our home.
I love the idea. It's a great, did you call it a she?
She should.
That's adorable. It's so cute.
I just said shoe shed, I'm like, oh, it might be. But she shed, I like that.
That's so much fun. I mean, it's really precious.
and it's okay if you all don't, if you need more information.
It's a gorgeous house.
So this is painted the same color.
I only wanted to toss it out there to give some direction because it's a project that would still, regardless of setback, would need approval in order to get constructed. So if it were to come forward and the HALRB said, you know, we don't want to use our setback modification power, but we approve the construction of that structure, and then it would go through the other process with zoning and everything in order to see if it could get constructed. I just wanted to take the temperature of, is something like this appropriate? And again, this is preliminary, so there's no formal application yet. It would need to come back.
What I'm seeing is cute. The photo seems compatible it's on a screen this big. To me, that's a different discussion, and it seems like it would be in the right place to go forward with that discussion, just based off design. Again, just, it would have to come, whether it's that existing approved, the HLRB has previously approved, because it's not just giving up 1 foot. This is 8 feet and 3 feet, and now we're going down to 1.5 and 2 foot too. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the under 2 feet gets me, and then going from 8 to under 3 is a big jump. So that's that discussion.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to HLRB modifying or maintaining the existing modification, but what's functional without a historic argument, it's kind of hard to know.
So I think if anything, what was previously approved is like an apples to oranges, right?
A little bit.
Yeah,
Little
so,
bit.
but I think trying to get, if you were to do a formal COA, then some of the questions, like you were saying, is what is going on with the properties around it, and then wanting to get an idea of like pictures of the existing conditions, so we get a sense of how close it is to the house, how close it is to everything else, because like seeing this on the design, I think it looks like it's a lovely design, but it also is a very large she shed. So, which is great, but just trying to get it in its context with the main dwelling to this would be kind of necessary, I think, for you all to get an idea of what it's gonna look like.
I think seems kind of could be helpful too. I mean, kind of play devil's advocate a little bit. I mean, if there are a bunch of outbuildings that are essentially on the property line, like that being sort of grandfathered in, like next to this one, that would make me more, that'd make a strong argument to me about it. I mean, that'd be a strong argument to use our ability to sort of override the zoning.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's sort of my take on that. That's sort of my feeling about it. If it's been done a lot in neighborhood already, maybe actually it's not for zoning, but it's sort of a thing that's being done here, and that people, it's sort of in neighborhood works connection anyway. So that's one. That's sort of a counter take, I think, to everything that has been said previously.
think that what's being asked for. It's a she shed or accessory dwelling. Counties have already got guidelines and setbacks for that. If it's shed, legitimately shed. Sort of. I just really, I think until we have further information, appropriate to consider zoning guidelines. So, I don't know.
Okay. So it sounds like just investigating, yeah, it sounds like investigating that is necessary in order to kind of provide more feedback.
So I think what I will do is, well, I'll connect with you and Alex with an email to kind of summarize some of the comments received tonight. And we can think through next steps. And I'm gonna talk with some of my zoning colleagues just to get a better sense from them as to like, let's play out some of these different scenarios and what would need to happen, just so that you have more information about what the next steps would be and whether or not you want to continue to pursue it and make a formal application. And then, Omari, when you're done with that, I want to look at it just so that I can write down the number. I do want. Oh, but did you have any questions about anything? Okay, Alex, did you have any questions?
No, I mean, I can definitely provide you some examples of Maywood garages that are on the property line. So
Okay,
they're
that would.
very relevant. Very
That
throughout.
would be great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alex. I really appreciate you attending and thank you for listening as well.
Thank you guys for your time.
Okay, thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
But essentially, it's not an ADU, but it's not a garage.
Yeah.
But it's not a shed. I mean, it's kind of a shed, but it's an extreme shed.
Yeah, yeah, so
This made possible under AD guidance.
that's kind of what I was getting at.